Maybe check in the back of the temple if the Bhagavatam is there. It's the first 10th canto, part 2. I'll start with chanting Radha Madhava. Maybe check in the back of the temple if the Bhagavatam is there. It's the first 10th canto, part 2. I'll start with chanting Radha Madhava. Maybe check in the back of the temple if the Bhagavatam is there. It's the first 10th canto, part 2. I'll start with chanting Radha Madhava.
They stand for 27 and 28.
Thank you so much. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachamari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachamari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai Shri Radha Murlidhar ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Ananda Bhartu or someone else, can you put the verse on the screen? Share the verse on the screen. Because I only have the book here. I'm on my phone, I won't be able to share from my phone.
Okay, give me a minute.
Om Jnanatimidandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Dadati Swapantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yutam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Vaghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Shcha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Shri Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Vasudeva Prabhu, there's something wrong with my computer. I can't share. I have to quit Zoom and then rejoin again. So Ananda Manjari or Amrita Kishori, could you share the link that I put in the chat? Open the link and share your screen. Yeah, thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. Asking for the blessings of all the devotees, especially the senior devotees here. Right in front of me is here Adi Purush Prabhu and Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Thank you for being here. And please feel free to speak whenever you feel fit. We're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 14, Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna. A very deep an important section of the Bhagavatam. A lot of our teachings, actually, they are based on this section of the Bhagavatam. Many of the verses are key to our philosophy, our understanding. So we're reading text 27. And I'll read the Sanskrit. Tvam atmanam param matva Tvam atmanam param matva Paramatmanam evacha Atma punar bahir mritya Ahogya janata gyata. So read the word for word. Tvam, you, Atmanam, the real self, Param, something else, Matva, thinking, Param, something else, Atmanam, yourself, Eva, indeed, Cha, also, Atma, the Supreme Self, Punaha, again, Bahi, outside, Mrigyaha, must be searched out, Aho, oh, Agya, ignorant, Janata, of persons. Aho is like an exclamation of, oh, wow. It's an expression of amazement, Vismaya.
Native Americans use that same.
There is it similar to the lady?
So Agyata, the ignorance. Translation. Just see the foolishness of those ignorant persons who consider you to be some separated manifestation of illusion, and who consider the self, which is actually you, to be something else, the material body. Such fools conclude that the Supreme Soul is to be searched for somewhere outside your Supreme Personality. Purport. Lord Brahma is amazed, aho, is an expression of amazement, at the gross ignorance of conditioned souls who consider Lord Krishna's supreme spiritual body To be material, ignorant of the spiritual form of the Lord, such persons also consider their own material bodies to be the self, and therefore they conclude that spiritual reality is to be found somewhere beyond the Supreme Personality of Lord Krishna. Sometimes such fools consider Lord Krishna to be one of the many individual souls who together constitute a single impersonal spiritual entity. Unfortunately, such speculators are not inclined to hear from the Lord himself or from the Lord's authorized representatives, such as Lord Brahma. Because they whimsically speculate on the nature of the Supreme, their ultimate result is confusion and ignorance, which they euphemistically describe as the, quote, the mystery of life, unquote. What is the meaning of this word, euphemistically?
The euphemism is where we describe one thing with some other words that kind of they make it sound less serious than it is. So civilians might be killed in war, and we call it collateral damage.
Right. So Sripalad is saying that an example of a euphemism is civilians are killed in war, and we call it collateral damage. So we kind of describe something in the different terms to kind of lessen the impact of the. So it's a real. People are confused and ignorant, but it's talked about euphemistically as the mystery of life, kind of
Right.
more like flowery terms. So yeah, we'll also read text 27, but first we'll speak on this verse. I looked at many of the commentaries also of the acharyas, and it is one of those verses you can explain in 64 different ways.
Yeah.
Probably many more ways. Like Lord Chaitanya, he spoke on the Atma Rama's Chamunayo verse, and he explained it in 64. Well, how many? 64 different ways. Like this word can mean this word can mean that, and if this word means this, then the whole verse means that. If this word, so in this way, you can give many explanations. The Bhagavatam is Krishna himself, so Krishna is Ananta, unlimited. So the meanings of the Bhagavatam also unlimited. So, but we'll focus just on the interpretation the translators have given. Gopiparanam Prabhu was my dear teacher. I learned Sanskrit from him and Bhagavatam also. So he and Hridayadanda Das Goswami Maharaj, they did the translation, the purport here. So honoring them, we'll first go with their explanation. So Tvam Admanam Paramatva. Thinking you, Tvam, Atmanam, who are you? You are Atmanam. You are the Supreme Self. You are the true Self, the Self of all selves. Anyone knows the meaning of the word Atma? Why? There's many meanings again, but Atma, how is it derived, the word Atma? So it said, there's one quotation all the acharyas give. It said, Atatvacha Matritvacha. That the word, the syllable At comes from Atatva, meaning pervasiveness. So he's pervading. And Matritva means he's a knower. He's a knowing entity. So that's what Atma, pervading and knowing. So we also, Jiv Atmas, we're also pervading. We're pervading this body by our energy, by consciousness, and we're also knowers. Kshetragyas, we're knowing of our bodies, we're knowing of our emotions, we're knowing of our own self, we're self-aware. So we are knowers, but our pervasiveness and our knowing is very limited. But Krishna is the supreme Atma, Paramatma, because his pervasiveness is unlimited. He pervades everything, and his knowledge also is unlimited. So he's in the true. He's the true. True meaning of Atma is really Krishna, because he's all pervading and all knowing. So when we speak about Atma, we often think about the self, right, with capital S. But the true meaning of Atma is, lowercase s. We think about Atma, lowercase s. But the true meaning of Atma is uppercase s. That's the principal meaning. And we only derive our Atma-ness, our sense of being self and pervasiveness and self-awareness and knowing, because we get it from him, because we are a part of him. So here, Tvam Atman, you're truly the Atma, but people consider you Param something else. They look at Krishna and they think, oh, he's just one of the other Atmas or an ordinary coward boy or whoever. Param Atmanam Evacha. And they also think the self, here lowercase s, who consider the self, which is actually you, because we are derived our existence from him, as Param also is something else. What is that something else? The material body. So we also consider ourselves to be something else, and these two are related. That point is made in the purport. As soon as we consider Krishna something else, then we also tend to consider ourselves something else. We get absorbed. We have a material conception of Krishna as an ordinary being. Naturally, also we consider ourselves being part of him as some ordinary entity, and this is expressed in the Gita. Avajanati ma'amudha manusham tanamashitam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I appear in this human-like form, and they think I'm just an ordinary being. And not knowing my higher nature, they don't know my higher nature as the Lord of all beings. And what happens after that? Moghasha, Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichetasa, Rakshashim Asarim Cheva, Prakritim Mohanim Shita. So when you consider Krishna as a material being, then all your hopes are baffled, Moghasha. Even if you worship Krishna without the wrong conception, not, and this is important for us, not fully being aware of his spiritual form and identity, then your bhakti will never be successful. Moghasha, your hopes of ever attaining anything through that bhakti will be. Mogha jnana, you're a jnana, you want to attain knowledge, you want to attain knowledge of the self or liberation. It will not be possible. That will be baffled. Mogha karmana, all your fruitive activities will be baffled. Prakriti mohinim shritaha, and you'll be taking shelter of the bewildering illusory energy. Not just that, but rakshas sim asurim chaiva, that aspect of the material energy which is rakshasim, which is related to the rakshasa nature, which is ignorance. The epitome of ignorance in material nature is the rakshasa, the man-eater, those who feast on human flesh. And then you have the asurim, this is the epitome of passion, those who just want material gain and ready to do anything for that. So we tend to, the point here is, considering Krishna's body to be material, we become absorbed in a material conception of life. And to the degree we have the conception, to that degree we'll sink into ignorance and passion and develop these like lower modes of nature. So that's why Brahma, he's having just seen Krishna's immense glory. He was seeing him as a coward boy, but now he's seeing how this little coward boy with some yogurt and rice and fruit in his hand, in his left hand also, which is kind of shown of like he doesn't even quite know which hand to use to eat. And he's suddenly seeing that boy manifesting like unlimited Narayana forms. And Narayan is Brahma's source and the source of unlimited universes. So he's seeing this baffling display and thinking like, and now he's in amazement. How can people think of you as just something like ordinary? And that's why, Atma Punar Bahir Mritya. That's why they're still seeking Atma. Everybody's seeking Atma. Everyone is seeing that supreme self, that supreme source of everything, either through science or through philosophy or through yoga, meditation, or taking Atma here to be lowercase s, seeking the self and the self-help books and by the psychologist, and so many different ways we're seeking self, the supreme self, and also our own self. Because we feel in this world, we are born in ignorance and we have this kind of sense of being lost. So we're always seeking. Mrigya, mrig means to seek. So always seeking. And we're always seeking something. Now it's Saturday today, right? So Saturday night. So people are like, okay, what I'm going to do today? What I'm going to seek out today? It's always that seeking. Ultimately, we're seeking the supreme, and we're seeking our own self, the relationship with him, which is our natural blissful condition. So he's expressing his amazement and his compassion also. This is the ignorance of ignorant persons, that they're always seeking for something which cannot be found, and which, as he's seeing Krishna right in front of him, like you're here right in front of and you're right here walking amongst us, but yet everybody is looking for you here and there, going somewhere else. There's a very nice example in the Bhagavatam. It's one of my favorite examples because it's so. It's sometimes these analogies, they tell you so much about the condition. It's about the mriga. Mriga means a deer. I don't know why deer is called mriga, but it's, I guess, always like seeking out something. I don't know exactly what's the connection. The mriga is also called a deer. So a deer has a well of water just in front of it, but it's covered with a little bit of grass, so it can't see it. So, and then that deer runs out into the desert looking for water. So that's our condition. We have the Supreme Lord residing in our own heart. And he's very close to us, the closest to us. Yet we look running out and looking for him anywhere else. But how much water is there in the desert? Usually you run out into the desert looking for water, but you'll die out of exhaustion trying to find that water. And you may see water, but it's just a mirage. Also, one of our classic examples, you see the mirage in the desert. It's the heat of the sun creating an impression of water, and also mixed with our psychology of like hankering for water. We think that mirage is water and running after it. So that's our condition in the material world, always seeking, always running after really Krishna. Krishna is called in the Upanishads Rasa Vaisaha. He's Rasa. And then it said, obtaining Rasa, Rasam Ladva Anandi Bhavati, one becomes blissful. This is a very profound statement. This is a very important statement. We're looking for rasa really with Krishna. We're looking for relationship, that loving exchange in relationship. And attaining that rasa, one becomes blissful. And being deprived of that rasa, we're running out here, there, looking for it everywhere we can find some little bit of rasa. But Krishna is Akila Rasa Amritamurti. He's the ocean of rasa. He's the complete form of rasa. And only he's the source of rasa. He's like that well in which we can really quench our thirst for rasa. But he's right there in front of, close to us, but yet we're running after him here and there. There's another comment here. It's made that that the supreme reality is to be found beyond the supreme personality of Lord Krishna. So this is a very strong point Srila Prabhupada often made. I was just I've been in contact with an elderly lady who approached me she's in the kind of final stages of life and she's looking for some guidance. And she loves Bhagavad Gita. She's from Indian descent. She's been living in New York for a long time. But she loves Bhagavad Gita. She's been studying it for many, many years. So I gave her a copy of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, which she's not so much familiar with. So I said, how did you like it? And she said, I'm more familiar with other versions of the Gita, Radha Krishna, Dr. Radha Krishna, and so forth. We don't want to mention that name necessarily. And I found that it's a very ISKCON version of the Bhagavad Gita, a very ISKCON version. And what does that mean, ISKCON version? It's kind of sectarian. It's kind of like, it's just your interpretation of the Gita. But what it really means is Prabhupada's constantly hammering on Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And many times you see in Vedantic discourse, it's always like you have a Purva Paksha. There's like an opposing opinion. And the sutras, it's polemic actually. They addressing that opposing opinion. The whole Vedanta Sutra is based on that structure. There's a lot more to it. I'm not even so familiar with it. But Prabhupada very much, in writing his books, he has an opponent in mind as he's writing. And that's the Purva Paksha. And the opponent is very much Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is a manifestation of the impersonal Brahman. And it was very much expressed by one of the commentators of which I just mentioned, who commented on a particular verse in the Gita, which we considered the shining jewel of the whole Gita. It's right there in the heart, in the end of the 9th chapter, and it's at the very end. I think Ramanujacharya is called the Chamara Shloka. It's like it's the cream. It's the most, for us, it's the most dear shloka of the whole Gita. Manmana bhava madbhakta madhyadi mam namaskuru. Mama vaishya yuktvayavam admana madhvaya. So Krishna says, think of me. Become my devotee. Offer your worship unto me. And offer obeisances to me. And thus being absorbed in me, you will come to me. So the commentator comments. Actually, I once looked it up verbatim. It would be kind of nice actually to look at it. But Prabhupada, as he paraphrases it, it's not to Krishna we have to think about, not Krishna we have to surrender. It's the unborn, unmanifest within Krishna, right? It's somewhere but here. It's as it is said, it's something outside of Krishna. But there is no inside and outside of Krishna. It's not that there is something other than Krishna within Krishna's form and personality. Krishna is his form. He is his personality. He is his qualities. There's nothing like beyond Krishna. Or as the Kathopanishad says, Purusham naparam kinchit. Beyond the person, the Supreme Person, naparam kinchit. There's nothing higher than that. So it's not just there in the Gita. But then they say there is something beyond it.
When Prabhupada does that, he tells what they say, and then he raises his voice and ferociously smashes it.
Yeah.
This is not the truth.
So some of his early followers, they were thinking, why is Prabhupada always like at these Mayavadis? And so at some point they approached him, I think one of them particularly leading the charge and kind of starting to restate, well, there is something beyond Krishna. And then Prabhupada, Umapati Maharshi explains this, like he saw Prabhupada becoming angrier and angrier as this early follower was kind of reiterating all these thoughts. And then he said, are you finished? And he said, no. And then he went up and he finally said, are you finished? And then finally he was like finished. And Prabhupada stood up And he said, it is Krishna, it is Krishna, it is Krishna. And why are you trying to take it away from him?
Roaring like a lion.
Yeah,
That is Krishna.
that's how he remembered that statement. Because why so strong? Because Krishna, the devotee loves Krishna. And there's nothing beyond Krishna. And not even for the devotees of Krishna, not even Krishna's other forms, although they also, of course, adore all these other forms of Krishna. Still, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's the original form. And we're looking for that form, nothing else, ultimately. What to speak of, like considering Krishna just like the impersonal Brahman, or just an ordinary being. So taking that supremacy away from Krishna, that is very painful. It's like saying like the one you love most. It's just like kind of like an illusory entity. How offensive is that? Like if I say, like if I say Adi Purush Prabhu, he's just an illusion. It's very painful if you have deep love for that person. These verses are so deep. This is so much more to say about this verse. Now the explanation could be that thinking you to be just the Atma, the Paramatma, and the Paramatma alone. Then having that conception, yogis, Atma Punar Bahir Mrigya, they're searching for you Bahir, somewhere else, Acharya say. Vanado, in the forest, and so forth, in the case. Yes. You're here in Vrindavana, right in front of me. But you're thinking, oh, that's the Paramatma. He's in my heart. Oh, I have to go somewhere else, like to the Himalayas or something, to look for him. That's another. So Brahma also lamenting that kind of misconception of the yogi. But yet the devotee also seeking for Krishna within. It's not that we're just seeking for Krishna in Vrindavan. We want to see Krishna within ourselves also, with it, and creating Vrindavan, or not creating, seeing Vrindavan manifest in our own heart. So that's the next verse. Antarbhave nanta bhavantameva yatat tyajanto mrigayanti santaha asantamapyanta adyanti ahim antarena santam gunam tam kimuyanti santaha. O unlimited Lord, the saintly devotees seek you out within their own bodies by rejecting, this is the important line here, why I want to focus on, by rejecting everything separate from you. And it says, attat chajanta, giving up attat, what is not that, what's not you, what is different from you. Indeed, how can discriminating persons appreciate the real nature of a robe lying before them until they refute the illusion that it's a snake? So there's no inside and outside of Krishna, and he pervades everything. It's the Supreme Atma. So the devotees, they also see Krishna within and without, everyone, giving up the conception that anything is not Krishna, separate from Krishna, that worship a world deity, that worship a Lord. So even when the Paramatma, it's also nothing but Krishna. And for that matter, anything, the jiva is also nothing but Krishna. They see how Krishna is present everywhere, but not merged into everything. It's a separate entity, but yet he manifests through his energies everything, and they see Krishna everywhere and in everything. And then they see everything in the real, and then it's, you don't have to reject anything. Like you have to, when you think the rope is a snake, you want to avoid it naturally. But when you see it in its true sense, oh, it's a rope. Then it's no fear there. So there's no rejection of the material anything or anything for the devotee. They see Krishna and they seek for Krishna everywhere. So the gopis, they're wandering through the forest of Vrindavan. This Jiva Goswami gives this verse in explanation to the Chaturshloka, how Chaturshloki Bhagavatam describes Krishna as having entered into everything, yet he's outside of everything. So the verse he quotes is that the gopis, they wander through the forest looking for Krishna, Mrigya seeking, and they're asking the trees, oh, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? So they're seeing Krishna everywhere. That's the devotee. They're always seeking for Krishna everywhere, in all manifestations. Their question is, where's Krishna? And they see how, so the gopis, they look at the peacocks and they think of Krishna. And they think of his peacock feather. So like that. Like Prabhupada, he looked at the sky, the blue sky, and he thought of Krishna, the blue of the sky. Why is it blue? Well, Krishna is blue. So this is the devotee. They also seek for Krishna anywhere and everywhere. So I will just leave the purport. I'll just read one part of it, the last part, and then we'll have some questions. Those who are saintly and wise always cultivate Krishna consciousness, spiritual knowledge, having transcended the foolish misidentification of the body and the self as the self. Such Krishna conscious persons go and realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who dwells within the material body as the Super Soul, the witness and guide of ever-living entity. Realization of the Super Soul and the individual soul is so pleasing and satisfying that a self-realized person automatically gives up everything irrelevant to his spiritual plans. Of course, the devotee doesn't seek the Super Soul within through the yogic process, but there's another process. Tvam bhakti yogi paribhavita ritsaroja shrutekshita. I forgot the last. You don't remember this verse? Anyway, the verse goes, it's also a prayer of Lord Brahma that the devotees see Krishna within bhakti yoga paribhavita, being absorbed in bhakti yoga. Surtekshita, which is the path of hearing, through hearing and chanting of Krishna. They see Krishna also within their own heart, but not as the Paramatma. It's that form which they meditate upon. For the devotees of Ram, Krishna manifests in the heart as Ram. And for the devotees of Krishna, as Krishna. So for us, through our bhakti yoga and absorption here and chanting, we want to see Krishna within on the lotus, Ritsaroja, on the lotus of our hearts. And that's how we want to see Krishna within and without. When we see Krishna within, then we can see him. And fall in love with him, then we can see him everywhere as well. So just a few thoughts. We have a few minutes for questions. Sripalapu, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, thank you for a wonderful class. Helpful. If the people's 25 people online, they can hear it. Thank you for the class. I really loved all the points you made. Can I make a few comments? Yeah. Yeah. So one, I guess most people will be aware, but it's just to say that I think Brahma himself is marveling at his own ability to recognize that this little boy was Krishna. And so he is the Supreme Lord, but he thought him an ordinary child and played this prank of stealing the cows and his friends. For the deer example, so just one more level to that, the musk deer has the musk.
Yes.
Yeah, the musk, a gland in their navel. And so they secrete that fragrance of musk and then go running through the forest trying to find the source of that fragrance. And all the time, it's themselves. And so we souls, we go through the material nature trying to find happiness, satisfaction. But all the time, it's the soul that is Ananda, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and then connecting with the Supreme Soul. That's the Supreme Ananda. For the that Chara verse that you mentioned of Ramanujacharya, Manmana Bhava Manbhakto. So I think for Ramanuja, the Chara verse is Sarva Dharman Parityajya, yes. So 1866. And what you cited was 1865. But what I really like about the connection, I mean, it's one before the other, is that 1865 is telling us how to do 1866. So 1866 is surrender, give up everything and just surrender to me.
and then the verse that you were emphasizing, which I believe Ramanuja says 1866 Sarvadharman is the most important verse. And then, but I think for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I think for Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it's 1865, Man Mana Bhava Mad Bhakto.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I'm confusing two things. Because he describes, Krishna Chakravarti is describing those two verses as like the jewels kind of kept in the box.
Right.
Gita describes it like in the treasure box, studded with jewels, but Gita is like the crest jewel.
Yeah.
Which are those verses?
Yeah. The insight that I had as you were speaking was 1865 is actually telling us how to do 1866, and I never thought of that before. And that 1866 is the initiation mantra in the Ramanuja Sampradaya. It's whispered secretly into the ear of the disciple under cover. And it's basically the first verse that you hear as you enter into any ISKCON temple. Back to that other comment you made about Prabhupada's Gita. The last question now. And it's a simple question, but I love the citation of Rasa Labdva something Ananda. Anandi Bhavati. Okay, can you just give the reference for that and speak about that a tiny bit more? Like, where is that found?
So this is a verse from the Taittiriya Upanishad, and it's in relation to the koshas. So the koshas meanings, there's different level of consciousness, really. There's what's called annamaya, meaning conscious of food. Then it's called pranamaya, become conscious of living symptoms. There's manamaya, become conscious. Annamaya is food, base level. Yeah. And then, prana, living beings. Then manamaya, one level up, is becoming aware of the mind, mental processes. So a lot of human societies functioning on most in the manamaya. Yeah, ana and most, that's how far. Then there's vijnanamaya, that is level of consciousness, or understanding the self. And then there's anandamaya, understanding the supreme self, the supreme person. So in that context, the Upanishad speaks about rasa vaisaha. That's called anandamaya. The ultimate level of existence is the level of ananda. And that ananda is rasa vaisaha. He is rasa. And then rasam labdva, attaining rasa. Attaining relationship with that Supreme Lord, the source of all rasa, and then experiencing rasa ourselves, then anandi bhavati. One becomes anandi, blissful.
Wonderful. I learned the Taittiriya Upanishad as a child. I'll go back and look at the verses, and I hadn't made that connection.
Jiva Goswami, I think his Bhakti Sandarbha, or his Priti Sandarbha, like his treatise on love of God, he starts with this. Rasa Vaisa. So it's very, very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. That's where we find Krishna in the Vedas.
Rasa Vaisaha, I hear cited all the time, but the Rasa Labdva Anandi Bhavati, or whatever it was that you said, I haven't heard that cited as much, and that's what it was.
Thank you for your contributions. Yeah, one thing, and I'm sorry here for like neglecting the chat, because I just wanted, Sri Prahlad is here, and I just really wanted him to also contribute, so we can benefit from his realizations. The last thing, just what you said is that Brahma is looking at his own ignorance. And of course, we can speak a whole class about this too. One takeaway point, you always have your sadhana points, which I like. One takeaway point is we can look at our own ignorance. Like, we're dealing with Krishna so much. We're chanting his names, we're worshiping his form. To kind of remind ourselves, like, don't be ignorant of him. Let's be aware of him and who he is. And that's why it's so important to always have these discussions about Krishna, and also philosophical discussions. um, about Krishna Tattva, the truth about Krishna, because that will always remind us who we're dealing with. So thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai, Kitai Go Pramana.
Vasudev Prabhu ki jai. Thank you. Great class, Vasudev Prabhu. If possible, can you put us on the donation box so we can take that? I feel like I'm a baby and Vasudev Prabhu is carrying me.
I won't put you guys in the donation.
Yes, put us in the box. Okay, thank you very much, Vasudev Prabhu, for very detailed darshan. Okay, who's here? Let's see. Who's here for the afterglow? Participants. All right. Yeah, I just want to share a little takeaway. The rope and the snake. So I was thinking, yeah, the rope is not a snake. The rope is Krishna. We see Krishna everywhere. Wow, Rich Bhakti. Unmute yourself right away. We want to hear your realization. Can you see us? Your glasses are covered in snow.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you said Krishna is everywhere. These walks I take many steps. I do a lot of walking. I don't know that I've taken one true step yet, but such advanced topics being discussed today, and what a gift to hear from such advanced souls as Prahlad and Vasudeva and so forth. But out here today in the whipping snow, it's just a helpful realization for more simple-minded folks like myself. I just was thinking how, God has so many names, so many forms, so many energies and pastimes and so forth, unlimited opulences, one for each one of us. But this snow that's whipping me in the face right now may sound like a bit of a cliche, but a few days ago, this same snow was the clouds that I was watching reflect and then the river I was walking along, and then it was the rain. Maybe a few trillion years ago, it was Brahma's tears as he humbled himself before Krishna. I don't know, but but this water is all one, and in this world of duality, we know things by all of these differentiated names and forms, but they're in essence just when in Maya, like myself, they're really just artifices of thought and language. But we can extrapolate. Krishna is where the mind can't travel and words cease or words fail. But as Bhima often beautifully poeticizes, you go out in nature and you see things like this, just like a falling snow or a tree or a blade of grass. And you can extrapolate a little bit, right? You can't extrapolate to the point of conceiving. It's not really your place or in your ability to know. But when you just see God everywhere, in everything, in everybody, taking so many different seeming forms, but knowing that they're all one, it's a beautiful thing. You don't have to think about humbling yourself or being grateful. It's just there. That's just your state. How can you be but humble and grateful when there's so much beauty around you? Anyway, that's it for now. My hands are getting cold. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rich Bhakti Prabhu. I wish I could blow on your hands to make them warm. Okay, Bhima Prabhu. Rich says you're very humble. Can you share some humility, some humbling thoughts or realizations with us today so we can become humble too?
Am I unmuted?
We can hear you, Bhima Prabhu. We cannot see
You can hear me.
because you're very humble.
That's probably a curse that you can hear me. Anyways, I'll just repeat what Rich said. It's a beautiful thing. The fact that such a neophyte as myself can be in the presence of such an erudite scholar such as Vasudeva, and to hear commentary from, was that Prahlad?
Shri
Was
Prahlad.
That was Shri Prahlad?
Yeah, Shri Prahlad, the musician, the child prodigy.
Yeah. He we should have him more often as class. Do you often? I know he's every once in a while he gives a class. Do you ask him often to give a class?
Yeah, he was away for
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now that he's back, I'll get on his case. Yes.
Yeah, get on his case. Well, I don't have much to say. I mean, wonderful class, lots of Sanskrit. Me speaking now is sort of like an Aboriginal from the forest speaking to one of the Brahmins at the Goloka, the village, Govardhan Brahmins. I'm just here rubbing dirt on my chest. That's as close as I get. All right, Hare Krishna. I've said too much.
Thank you, Bima Prabhu. Yeah, did you see Vasudeva? He looked like a Srimad Bhagavatam sage character type. He was freshly shaved, wrapped in robes, tilak, transcendental glow, fluent Sanskrit towards the end. It was just Sanskrit towards the end. It's a very, very humbling experience. Where I felt Aboriginal too, Bima Prabhu. I'm happy to be in your tribe. Okay, would anyone else like to share or reflect? Gail is here. Would just like to acknowledge Gail. Gail, thank you very much for tuning in. Isabel, Spirit Soul, yeah.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, actually, a couple of thoughts did come to me, when the class was going on. One was that, when Vasudeva was talking about how upset Srila Prabhupada would get when he would hear Krishna's existence being maligned, by Mayavadis and so on. And, I feel like we could relate to that, because if we were to hear about somebody that we love, right? If we were to hear their character being misunderstood by somebody or being maligned by somebody, we would get so highly upset, because we know that that our beloved friend or relative is not that way at all, And so I felt like we could relate to Srila Prabhupada by just thinking of how we would feel ourselves if, something similar happened to somebody that we know.
Prabhupada said we should kick him in the head with our boot.
Mm-hmm.
Some Aboriginal way.
Yeah, actually, another just one last thought that came to me also when Vasudeva Prabhu was saying that, if we don't have the right conception of Krishna, we think that he's material or something like that, our attempts for perfection will be baffled. And that reminded me of Dhanada Maharaj, actually, because it's like one of his mantras is to explain why our attempts for perfection will be baffled if we don't have the right conception. He breaks it down in three ways. If we think that Krishna is material, right? And we think, if we think that he's just a person just like us, right? And we have this material conception of who we are, we think we're the body. And so if we see Krishna, we think he's the body too, then why would we worship somebody who is just like us, and so we won't worship him, right? And so that's one way. And then if we think that Krishna is, if he is, wait, let me see. If we think he's material, we won't worship him. If we think we're material, we also won't worship him, because we'll think that we're the body, and so we'll serve the body, which has nothing to do with worshiping Krishna. We'll serve the body. We won't serve Krishna. We basically will indulge in sense gratification, or maybe even impersonal liberation, So those are two ways in which, if we have misconceptions about reality, we won't serve Krishna. And therefore our attempts for perfection will be baffled. If we think Krishna is material, we won't serve him, because why should we? And if we think we're material, again, we won't serve him, because we should be serving ourselves, which means serving the body. And if we think that we're God, this is another misconception, then again we won't serve Krishna, because why should we serve him when we're the ones who's God? So in these three misconceptions of reality will result in our not serving Krishna. I hope that didn't sound too convoluted, but
It's great. Very nice. Dandar Maharaj breaking things up very nicely. It's a pleasure. It's a feast to your eyes to see his hands going up and down and breaking things down for us. Yeah, he's famously done that. Bhima Prabhu, your camera is on. You'd like to say something? You've just given us darshan. Yeah. Okay, all right. No problem. No problem, Bhima Prabhu. Yeah. Snow White. Is that Sita's little Ram or Snow White Krishna? Ram. Okay, cool.
did anybody catch the way Vasudeva had connected the 5 koshas to that Rasavai Saha verse?
Not me.
Okay, I'll listen to the recording.
Yeah, I wish Krishna Daya would stay for the afterglow, but Krishna Daya turns out.
I'm still on the, what is it, the 5 kleshas? Remember
Koshas.
yesterday?
Oh,
Kleshas.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
kleshas was yesterday.
Yeah, I wasn't
And
there yesterday. Mhm.
I looked it up and I was like, I've got every one of these. I'm rich. I got 5 kleshas. What are the koshas? Someone repeat what the koshas are. I missed that.
It's the 5 layers of consciousness, beginning with food anamoya, where
That's, yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
you basically your self-awareness doesn't really go past your gross body, so
That's me.
where that's where the food comes in. Yeah, that's why I'm surprised actually that Vasudeva said is actually manamoya, on the mental level, because I feel like for most people it's anamoya. But anyway, yeah, so there's that, then there's where you begin to become aware that there are other people in the world, not just you. So your consciousness goes beyond that. Then there's the
That's
mind.
Bhima Prabhu's dog. That's Sita's little Ram.
Yeah, there's never other people in the room. There may be animals in the room, but never other people. Actually, the Prabhupada said animals are people too. Remember that. That's a direct quote from Prabhupada.
Oh yeah, I always call animals and other living entities people. They're just people with different bodies, that's all.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's anamoy, manamoy, mental level. Then there's the intellectual level. Then there is the level where you understand you're the spirit soul. And then there's the level where you understand that you have a relationship with God, Anandamoya. Yeah. So it's progressive. Oh, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. Anamoy, Pranamoy, Manamoy, Vigyanmoya, and Anandamoya.
Thank you, Gail.
We have at least one of them.
Okay. All right, that's it for today, dear devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam never ends. We're very fortunate to have Vasudeva Prabhu, Shripalad Prabhu as our speakers. So stay tuned for that. Come back. We love you. We're happy to be part of your family. part of your tribe, as Bhima Prabhu put it today. Thank you very much. Keep rubbing the dirt. Stay in the shower. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Love you all. Hare